So again, welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Linda Ercoli, and I'm the interim director of the UCLA Longevity Center. And we're pleased and proud to be collaborating with Mount Sinai Memorial Parks and Mortuaries to bring you this webinar on ethical wills. So this is part 2. So last week we had a wonderful informational and inspirational session on this topic. And today we're actually going to follow through with the actual ethical will portion of this, which is how to create the ethical will. And we're going to have an interactive seminar today on this. So you will all probably, or will need to have with you a paper and a pen or pencil or a tablet, something to write on, because this is a workshop. We're going to be actively working today. And then we're going to be using the Q&A. If you see that on the bottom of your Zoom screen, the Q&A will allow you to ask questions of the speakers, and we'll be stopping periodically to do that. And you can also use the raise hand feature, which is also on the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, or maybe under the more section of your toolbar. And if you click that, you'll see raise your hand. So we'll be using those features. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker tonight. Again, is Kimber Sax from Mount Sinai Memorial Parks and the Mortuaries, and she will be leading our seminar today, along with Stuart Weintraub and also Jorge Dornbaum, who's here again from last week. Now, Stu Weintraub, he is a business coach, a TEDx presenter, and a spiritual healer. Coined the Jewish shaman by the Jewish Journal of Greater Los Angeles, his engagements deliver powerful transformational wisdom and insight for families, community organizations, corporations, schools, and religious communities. And so without further delay, I'm going to turn this over to Kimber and Stuart and to proceed with our Ethical Wills seminar. So welcome everyone again, and welcome to the audience. Thank you for being here tonight. And I'm going to stop my screen share, Kimber, and turn this over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm so happy those of you that were able to come back are here with us. As Rabbi Guzik and I said last week, it's truly an honor for us to facilitate this process for you. I don't know if anyone on here is new and didn't join in the first part, but don't worry. We're going to be going over basically everything that you need to know without maybe the history that you received from Rabbi Guzik. But I'm very excited this week because we have Stu Weintraub with us. Our paths crossed about a month ago. He is an amazing person who has an incredible ability to help people remove blocks and express themselves fully from the heart. And I can't say how important that is in this process. This isn't about logic. This isn't just I'm transferring these assets, these values that I have on paper or in a video. This is about really being able to process this procedure, what we're going through, and be able to share the most intimate parts of yourself. One of the things I learned from Stu, who is probably going to be speaking about it in a short bit, it's not just what we may want to share with those we love, but also what they need to hear, or how we want them to feel, or how they need to feel. Of course, he has far more experience than I do. Stu is here to help us. He will help us get through this process. He works with every kind of person and group. He's very experienced in helping individuals express themselves fully, and it's especially expressing love. And I think that's what we're all here to do today, whatever that looks like to us and to whomever our audience is going to be, that's what we're here to do. So I do have several slides, and this is a process that is interactive. And there are a few things that we need to go through that seem very basic, such as what is a legacy? But before I do that, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, Stu, turn it over to you for a couple of minutes just to talk about, your thoughts about an ethical will.
Thank you so much, Kimber. Just thank you for UCLA Longevity for having me, and thank you. When my grandparents passed on, I was young. I was 8 or 10 years old, and all I have today are photos and some stories and some vague memories. And little did I know today that years later, my life would shape in the form of a healer and a coach, and really centered around that 4-letter word, this love. And my passion and purpose is to help people become unblocked from this from the essence of the life force energy, which is love, and then to express it outward to others. And so there is no better, more crucial production than the ethical will for us as mortal beings. When we pass, what do we leave? What's our message? What was our mission, and the message that we want for the mission of our loved ones carrying forward. And so it's a real honor. It's a very sacred experience for me. It's a very spiritual experience, and inviting others into that conversation, because that's all it is. It's a really deep, beautiful, intimate conversation. Spiritual master, way more wise than I, once said, the longest journey we will ever travel is the distance from our head to our hearts. And so I'm here to serve and to support. I help people become unblocked. One of the areas of interest to me is that when somebody's hesitant in this space, there's a lot of fear, and people sometimes don't even understand the blockages. Why is somebody avoiding or procrastinating from taking care of these things? They have a desire, but they're not necessarily able to put the transmission in gear and take the action. And so if I can add value in any way, shape, or form, I'm here to do that and offer support in my counsel and my experience, and ongoing. It's truly a passion of mine to help anyone and everyone who's feeling blocked from the process. The other area that's really of interest and opportunity is that often we come up at this time when we're thinking about an ethical will and a legacy of love. I call it a legacy of love. Ethical will sounds very serious, and love is joyful and happy and beautiful and expansive. So I'm in the business of that, and helping people convey that, as well as the lessons, the critical lessons, the wisdom, the do's and the please don't do's, after my time has come. But there's another aspect, which is, as a healer, there's often strife in the family dynamic in my clients' experiences, and or to whomever this document, or in my case, I love the notion of video, because video captures all of the senses, not just a written document. But anyhow, the opportunity to actually acknowledge where there has been, or there might be, strife in the relations of people where these messages are being conveyed, we can maybe look into helping to heal those relationships now, and not just wait to say the things that we wanted to say when it's left behind in an ethical will.
Thank you for that, Stu. Actually, what you just said, we touched on last week, and it's that several people, I'll use ethical will, you could use legacy of love. Several people choose to disclose their ethical wills at their death. Someone passes it on to them, whereas many more are now choosing to share it while they're alive and allow that to be a discussion, within the family. And that's really a beautiful thing. As we spoke about last week, just to recap, in our society, the importance is put on transferring tangible assets from one generation to another. By adding an ethical will, or let's use a legacy of love, together, we can complete the transfer of both valuables and what valuables can't buy. And more important, to add to what Stu said, there are other mediums, video, music. We talked about a lot of these things last week. We're adding the element of feeling. It's not just how we want them to feel, but how they actually are going to feel. The power that we have. We have this incredible power that you don't necessarily have with an estate plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is put up my first slide.
Kimber, just want
yes.
to add something.
Sure.
Something which I think is really important in ethical wills is to establish what you want to communicate to the people you're leaving the ethical will. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to say to them? What do you want to transfer in terms of the values that you're leaving behind? What is this is really about who you are, about what do you want them, how do you want them to remember, not about how I see it, not about really satisfying any of their needs, but mostly about communicating to them who you are, what you're leaving behind, and what they can use during their life that is part of you.
Thank you, Jorge. I just got a question, and I apologize for that. You all know who's on our panel here. We were here last week, but Kelsey June was not with us last week. Unfortunately, she was ill. However, she and I have studied ethical wills together. We've actually, as I had mentioned last week, had just written our own ethical wills. Kelsey is a support specialist here at Mount Sinai Memorial Parks. We work very closely together. And she is joining us this week since she wasn't able to last week, and she will participate as we move along. So I apologize for not introducing you sooner. So I'm going to start with a very basic slide, but it's really going to start us off. Here we go. Okay. So I'm hoping you can all see this because it's my first time. It says, what is legacy? Now, Jorge, you had mentioned a minute ago about what it is we're leaving, what it is we're doing here. So our ethical will is basically the intangibles, our legacy. So the question is, what is legacy? Do you have any thoughts of what the definition or what legacy means in terms of what we're doing here? Anyone? Well, I have such participation from my panelists.
I mean, I can chime in. I think, something that we talked about before is legacy being such a big word, and how to kind of pull some of that weight off of it by thinking of it more as, I don't know, the values that you want to pass on, or just,
So
yeah,
yes,
I think
you're right. What we had talked about was that legacy should not be thought of as finality or death. When we say a legacy, we shouldn't. The minute you say legacy, it's like, oh, what you're leaving behind. If you're leaving it behind, then you must be dying, or it's over, or it's final. And that's not what we're here to do. We're here to think of legacy not as finality, not as death, but something powerful, something positive, something inspiring. What is your impact? What is your influence? What is your intangible wealth? It's a vehicle for personal reflection of a life lived, or the one that you are actually living. And as I don't know if Stu, you want to chime in now, you had talked about, you know, how doing this, you might change how you're living moving forward.
Yeah. We
Um,
all have this dash. There's a date at the beginning, and then there's going to be a date at the end. And so in between is the dash. And so we get to create this dash, which is our lives. And legacy to me is, maybe you don't know this. I don't know if I shared this, but I'm actually I spent 25 years in advertising and marketing, and as an intuitive, the tagline of my company is forging lasting impressions. And marketing is all about the lasting impression. And what is it that we want? We're not creating an ad campaign, but advertisers and marketers understand what is it that someone's going to take with them after the commercial's over. And so our lives are not a commercial, of course, the metaphor, but what I really help people get down to is what is it that they want people to remember, the sound bites and the visuals, and to take with them. It's the best Super Bowl commercial ever aired. And the ethical will is that opportunity for us to go to really dive deeply as someone cares to, and because that's what's left behind. And hopefully it can be produced and directed, and it's a powerful and a passionate experience for anyone and everyone thereafter. And that therein is the experience of legacy. What is it that we want others to take with and remember as the lasting impression?
Thank you. Actually had a very interesting discussion with a colleague today. And this is why Jorge and Kelsey and everyone at Mount Sinai and everyone we speak to is so intrigued by ethical wills. We spend our days serving the community. I always say to anyone who comes here, before they even work here, I say, no 2 days are alike and nothing will ever cease to amaze you, because we're meeting human beings and we're discussing either in advance their life cycle that perhaps they're not prepared to discuss, or we're meeting them at the time of need. And it's very interesting when you're talking about planning, the whole idea of planning is control. Like you have some level of control. So you're either doing it in advance, which gives you a lot of control, or someone is in this position that they have to do it at the time of need, which does not give you as much control. However, the idea of planning, what you're really doing is hopefully giving your family this gift by doing your advanced planning, so that at the time of need, they don't have to process all of these things while they're grieving. This is the same thing with an ethical will. By planning, you are giving this gift. It's the same thing as I said last week. A contemporary ethical will is basically a gift. So you're giving this gift, and what are you gifting them, really? And this is the same thing I said about advanced planning, or you would be saying about an ethical will, or many things we plan for. You're gifting a feeling. You're gifting them maybe you're gifting them the opportunity to grieve during that time. Maybe you're giving them the opportunity in an ethical will of how they can feel or find humor. So the idea of planning, advanced planning, perfectly aligns with an ethical will. Or as Rabbi Guzik said, she wrote letters. Remember, she wrote letters to her children every year on their birthdays. She writes letter, because an ethical will, as Stu will talk about a little bit, is a living document. So it can change over time. We have to consider the audience who will be reading our ethical will. If I write mine now, not only am I going to change over the years, but what's in that for my children or whomever I'm writing it to, they'll be very different how they read it or take it in 30 or 40 years, God willing. So the conversation I had with a colleague today was about how powerful our legacy is and how powerful our emotions are, because we are able to actually not control, but have an influence on how other people feel. And so what he said to me was his daughter was studying for her master's in psychology, or for counseling. And she brought home a paper, and the sheet had I wrote it up here, the 88 most common feelings. There's 88 like most common feelings. And he said to me that an ethical will is, I wrote it, is so powerful because it gives us control of who we are and the feelings we impart. And then he said to me, the ethical 88 keys, if you play piano, there's 88 keys on a piano. So he said, there's 88 keys on a piano. What's your song going to be? What's your song going to sound like? What's someone else going to hear? And so that's what we're doing here today. So I'm going to share
Also,
my
just to add something to what you're saying, Kimber, I think it's also about accountability. It's also about, checking or making a check, doing a check of your balances of who you really are when you're leaving all these messages and all these values to the person you love or to the people you want to leave these ethical wills to. So it serves a personal purpose for the person who's writing it or who's doing it, and then another purpose for the people you're leaving it, right? How are you leaving? What are you saying? What are you leaving behind?
Yeah.
very much so, Jorge. Did you have something to say, Stu?
Me never. You touched on it. You touched on the it's a love letter. And I'm a saver. I've always been a saver. I save those cards that my mom wrote to me for when I was Father's Day and my birthday. And I love getting cards, but this generation, fewer and fewer people are taking the time to write handwritten notes. And some of us get emails, we get texts, or we get an e-card. And so this is taking it back into the tangible. And I love what you said about the 88 feelings. It's not just what, and you mentioned it before we started or right at the beginning, it's not necessarily what we want to convey. It's also what I think we need to think in future generations, what they will want to know about us. And I think in talking with others who have prepared their own ethical wills, they're very focused on making sure they convey their principles, their values, their virtues. But actually what people want to know in future generations is like, who were you and what were you all about? And what was your favorite ice cream color, favorite ice cream flavor? And so it's more about it's the who and not just the what, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that really, Stuart, really makes a lot of sense because, there are things that people will remember about others that we're not asking them to remember, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And then there are things that we have never told people that maybe we couldn't tell them for a number of reasons. And so we've never shared with them. And an ethical will is a great vehicle to share those things that you've not been able to voice before, right? Your feelings, your thoughts, how you think about people, and then the values, right? What's important to you? What would you love to see future generations doing that you can leave them? It's not just leaving them X amount of dollars or a house, but what is it about your values? And can you do some, is it that you love music? Is it that you've been an animal rescue person and you would like people to be, help animals in future generations? How is there a way that your values can live on in the next generation or the people left behind?
And it doesn't have to be serious. It can have laughter and levity in it as well.
Okay, so this slide here is just a visual for you to think about what do you have to give in the largest sense of the word. I can't see all of our participants. Many of the workshops that Kelsey and I have done, we're interacting with our participants so we can see, where they are and read their facial expressions. And unfortunately, I can't do that, but I just wanted to put this up so you can start to think about what it is that you have to impart. I understand that many of you on tonight may not actually start writing tonight. I really hope that you do. And maybe you'll not do an ethical will at all, but that's okay also. The most important thing I hope you can get out of tonight is to open your mind to exploring, you know, what it is you do have to impart, what it is that is important to you. I think the beautiful thing about this for me, and it'll go back to what Jorge said about accountability, I wouldn't necessarily use that word for me, but I had mentioned last week, and I had mentioned in our private meetings with Linda and Kelsey, that for writing the ethical will seemed in the end to do more for me than I intended. I thought I was doing something for those I love, and it really centered me and made me think about where I am and what's important. And it had a huge shift. And I am a numbers person. I'm black and white. There's no gray in my life other than my jacket, you know, and I have to say, I woke up the next day and had kind of a little shift about the way I woke up and lived my life the very next day. And it was very eye-opening for me. So I really hope that everyone that is participating tonight does at least here for the next, 45 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever time we have, participates, because it's truly an experience. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the dimensions of legacy and influence. And this is really something that I need everyone hopefully to participate in, because we're going to sign off. We're going to be quiet for a minute or two. I want you to think of your past, right now, where you are and your future. And let's just focus on the past and who's made a difference in your life. Kelsey and I actually just did a workshop about a week and a half ago, right before the first session here. And we were told we had 1 or 2 minutes, and we had to think of 3 people who, influenced us, or actually didn't use the word, made a difference in our lives. And I have to say, it's very difficult to not immediately say, well, my mom and dad, and then you're just trying to think of the third person.
Mhm.
But when you get to that third person, you start to flutter about all these different people. And sometimes mom and dad, it's okay. I'm giving you permission to not put mom and dad in there. We know they made a difference in that. We know they have something to do with your life. But it's okay to think of someone else. Don't be guilty. Think of a couple people, 2, 3 people right now that made a difference in your life. And I'm truly hoping that in a minute or so, when I ask, someone will raise their hand of our participants, and we can invite you in, and you'll share with us who that person is and why they made a difference in your life. And if not, I'm calling on my panelists. So let's take a minute, write something down or think about it, and we'll go from there. Okay, do we have anyone raising a hand?
We have 2 participants that have raised their hands.
Fantastic.
And so let's start with David Shanbrom. We have 3. So let's start with David.
Okay.
David, I'm gonna open it up. You can talk. You should be able to say something.
He's muted.
He asked to unmute. So you can unmute yourself.
There
Yeah,
you
how
go.
about now?
Great.
Hi,
Okay,
David.
hi. Hi,
So-
everybody. So in terms of influence, you know, I grew up in Detroit, and the first time I ever left the city, I was 13. And I had visited my aunt in California for the summer. Through that, what really changed my life was, compared to the family I was raised in, my aunt, my mother's sister's family was very demonstrative. So I learned it's okay to hug and to kiss socially, and a lot of social graces, because up until then I was really captured in the world of Detroit, and I had a very different upbringing, but I carry almost all of that with me today and more. So
Thank you for sharing.
yeah,
Thank you, David.
I guess that's it. Other than, I just want to say, I'm not sure how this works. I typed in a few, I don't know if they're questions or statements, but I just wanted to say that for me, the difference between a ethical will or legacy, I really believe they start just shortly after we're born, because if we think of the phrase, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, how soon and how much do we become our parents? And what is the demarcation in our lives that suddenly whisk us away from those bookends to explore other parts of life? And unfortunately, most people aren't able to do that. So earlier today, and I've pondered this, and maybe everyone's heard this before, but who we are is not what we do. And I think who we are is really comprised of feelings with the absence of logic, because I really believe, although logic is an important aspect of everyday life, I think it really disconnects us from the universe and from the people that are next to us, where we should be giving strength to all of those around us. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
David. That's a lot of food for thought right there. But thank
Do
you.
we have another participant?
Yes, Irene Borger, you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you. So go ahead.
Hi, I was the writer in residence at AIDS Project LA for 10 years, and 3 days a week during time when people were dying, many people in the group. So on my list, there are they were mostly men. Mostly what comes up for me is wit, bravery, and the stories. And I still teach writing workshops, and I have a group that's been meeting for 15 years, and someone died last week. So, and actually last night, what were we going to do? We're on Zoom together, and people know each other really well. And we know what we did? I said, let's each think of a story that Lois wrote. It wasn't just our memories of her, but it was what we remembered that she wrote about her own life. And it was so enlivening. It was so wonderful. So I guess for me, that thing that says, cry at weddings, laugh at funerals. And so I guess, story brings so much. And I think it's a real lesson to be able to share that. And thanks. I'm really appreciating you all.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you. How about Cynthia? Is it Tiedemann? I'm going to unmute you. Cynthia?
Yep, thank you. Yeah. I immediately thought of my husband's aunt, who was always so welcoming to me. And she was probably the wisest person I've been around, but still what I think about her is how she would listen. And I think she's had an impact on helping me grow older, because I can feel how valuable how she treated me was. That's my story.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think we
Thank
have one
you.
more. Do you see Nancy?
We have a couple. We have Nancy and Arlene. So
Okay.
Nancy, you've had your hand up for a while. Would you like to say something?
Sure.
Nancy Stone. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah. I actually thought of a girlhood friend who was a roommate of mine after we got out of school, and we were both on a path together that were kind of careers that I think our parents thought were good little careers for nice Jewish girls. And she at one point decided to go and get her master's in something else. And it really made me think about, was this really what I wanted to do with my life? Because I had other aspirations. And I think she really helped me realize there was another journey that I wanted to go on. And because of her, I went in a different direction. And so I hadn't really thought about that in a very long time. And even though we're still friends, I just had kind of forgotten how influential she was in my life when I was in my 20s. So that's what came up for me.
Nice.
Okay, one more and then we got to move forward.
Okay, Arlene, you're on. Arlene.
Arlene needs to unmute or be unmuted.
Okay. The first person I thought of when you said that was somebody named Rose, who I worked with after college. She lived by herself, and when I got pregnant, she was the one, because I didn't drive, who would drive me back to the valley from Beverly Hills every day, and we got to be good friends. She always celebrated every holiday as if she was having a feast for everyone. And now I'm by myself, and this is the first Passover I'm going to be by myself, and I'm pulling out my dishes that I used when I was a baby that's been used by my family, and every holiday is celebrated with decorations in my home, all because of this woman who she lived her life. She was just amazing. She would hear about things on the news that I never heard about, and she would share things. And there's so many special people like that out there that are single who have so much to share with other people. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
They're all great stories.
Very.
She actually
So-
left her house to me too when she died.
Ooh,
We're
wow.
friends.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Arlene, at the end, that she's single. This does not, just because many of us talk about our children, this is not an ethical will. Does not mean, you have to be married or have children, or, I mean, there's a lot of people in the world that you come in contact with every day. And the reason for this exercise was, as I said, who did you think of? I mean, we heard about Rose, we heard about, the college, or we heard about all these different people. And so you realize just how many people you influence or affect or have an impact on in your life. And so this is not, again, about I'm married with children and what I'm leaving them, my values. I want them to be good people. This is about you and who you are. You get to choose your audience. You get to choose what you're leaving. There's a lot of control. Like I said, legacy is powerful, but powerful in such a beautiful and good way. This is positive. So I'm going to share my screen again. And what I'm going to do, because we're not running out of time, we have plenty of time, but I want to put up a few excerpts from different ethical wills. These are written ethical wills we have talked about. For those that weren't in last session, We've talked about people who do bullet points, which is still written, but there are people, Kelsey and I learned someone left a list of songs. Someone left a list of music. I believe, I don't know if it was Jorge or Stu said, how about a video where you can see emotions? The only thing I want to emphasize is if you choose a video or some sort of recording or something, you want to make sure that you always have a written transcript. You want to make sure that you have a transcript, because in this day and age, I mean, I can't tell you how many VCR or whatever you call it, videos I have in my house that I have to have digitized or changed to a CD because we don't have VCRs anymore. So who knows what's going to happen over time, but no matter what the written word is, we should all know from the Talmud, the Torah, the Bible, whatever it is anyone believes, that seems to, along with oral history, the written word seems to carry on. So make sure that you have a written transcript. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and rather than open it to our participants, I'm going to ask different people on our panel just to read them out loud. They're all very different. Let's go with sharing the screen. I'm becoming an expert, guys. Here we go. Okay, so Linda, why don't you go ahead and read this one for us?
Okay. For my family, there were few, if any, surprises when they read my ethical will. However, it did leave them speechless to actually see my beliefs and hopes in written form. It was clear to me that this was viewed as a precious gift.
All right. Stu, you want to read this one?
Sure. I say these things not because you have to follow them, but because I want you to know how I feel and see the world.
So I shared this with the panelists before. This is actually one of my favorite lines from all that I've read. And we talked a little bit in the last session again about perception, and that you can't assume that your values or who you are or how you feel is automatically transferred to the next generation. And Jorge, you brought something up about, like I said, about accountability or what it is you want to share and who you are and how you act. It doesn't mean that the people that are the recipients understand why you're acting that way or who you are or what it is you're trying to do. I shared with Kelsey when I wrote my ethical will, I said, my children, if I just left, if they were giving a eulogy, they'd probably say, oh, she's so strong and she's intimidating and she's powerful and she's confident. None of the above. But that's what they saw. If I write them a letter, what they're going to learn is to keep going. No matter what obstacles in front of you. You don't have to climb over it. You can find your way around it or maybe through it. There's ways, find a different path, but you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And because probably the speed at which I did that and that I was an adult and they were children, all they saw was me moving. And so they think I am a strong, aggressive, powerful person. And that's not what I wish to leave them. So I want to make sure when I write to them that they know how I feel and how I saw the world and why I did what I did. So thank you for reading that, Stu.
Kimber, but I have a question. But is it really, when you're writing an ethical will, is it really about making people understand who you are or about transmitting the essence of who you are? Because it's two different things.
So Jorge, that's a great question. But again, I'm here to facilitate the process and walk someone through the steps. Stu is here to talk about emotions and help people process. But when you sit to write, you'll see what comes out. And what it's about, again, you're choosing your audience. You're choosing what you want to convey. And there's many different ways that you can do this. When we get to the last slide and we actually write, that it's virtually impossible in the time we have. Well, I shouldn't say, because you can have a very short one. You can have a few lines. Kelsey and I read one that said, I hope you, and it was like 3 bullet points and that was it. So we'll probably be able to write one section. When I was in my first workshop, I wrote my opening, and that was it. And that was enough to change everything about the way I felt and shift the next day. So I can't answer that for you. And hopefully when we get through this, you'll answer that for yourself. This is personal. We're not, this is how, whatever it is for you, what you want to impart, whether it's who you are or the feelings or what you want to leave to someone. But I feel that, I mean, I'm using the word feel, that all this is somewhat of that famous Maya Angelou or well-known quote, it's not what you say or do, it's the way you make someone feel. So what feeling are we going to leave someone with? And when you and I and Kelsey do advanced planning every day, our goal is for a family for the decedent to be able to embrace the family at the time of need and be able to take care of them when they're no longer there, that they did this for them, so they're able to grieve and move on. I feel that that's what we're doing with this ethical will. We're leaving a feeling, how we want them to feel, what we want to impart. I think you said it in the last session, we're still able to take care of our families long after we're gone. Or Linda had mentioned, Linda, didn't you mention something about someone, as they get older who had dementia or may no longer be the person they were? You had talked about, I think, something like that. So the ability to do this at a certain time when they may not be able to, right?
Yeah, right. There's like at least two ways you can think of it. One is to do this when you are, fully cognitively all there, sound. Do it while you can.
Yeah.
But I do think that even somebody with dementia, before they get too far along, can do this too, because they still have many feelings and cares and concerns inside of them that they can share with others. And in some ways, they might be able to share it more because they don't have a lot of competing what ifs and I shouldn't.
Nothing blocking them, right?
Yeah,
Stu?
blocking them, right. So
Right.
I mean, so it can be really done by anyone. But I also think, from a psychology perspective, we can't control if people understand us or not. We can try, but we can't. But I think we can certainly do our best to reveal to them what we're thinking, what we're feeling, our hopes, what we want them to get, what we want them to know. Whether they actually come to understand us is a crapshoot.
Linda, I love that you just said reveal. I love that word, reveal. That's beautiful. Stu?
Yeah, may I interject one thing? And you touched on it with this slide. To me, it's two V's, virtues and values. And one of my most coveted virtue is humility. And so what this slide speaks to, and you referenced it also, I encourage people, humility is love is about intimacy, and intimacy takes truth, like raw truth. So humility is, are you willing to say, answer the question, where did you fail in your life? What did you not complete that you may have wanted to complete? What did you not get to do that you wanted to do? And what that does is it just offers humanness, because we're all imperfect. And like you said in your ethical will, the perception was you were this super powerful, amazing, mom. But we want to convey our humility and our transparency as well. Some of us choose to, and it's a choice. And I think in this whole workshop exercise, I also want to emphasize, this is not a self-help endeavor for many people. And so it really, for me, I love when I'm asked to support someone to help emote. I'm a writer. I'm not committed to writing. I love to speak. And at times I've brought people in to interview me, and it opens up the process of my communication channel. When I sit down and I write by myself, there's just too much distraction, or I don't always come up with the same things as when someone allows me to move my body and allow thoughts and feelings to come through when I've been interviewed. So I just want to emphasize what you're doing here and holding this workshop And for anybody who's participating, ask for help in this process, please. You don't have to sit alone with a pen and paper and find the answers to these questions. We're not supposed to do this thing called life on our own. So, asking someone the question, what are they most proud of? Or what did they not get to do that they wanted to do? Or where did they fall short?
Thank you. Okay, Kelsey, why don't you read this?
The most important thing I can bequeath you is something intangible, and hope I have already given you deep conviction of your own worth that translates into standards and instincts that will serve you all your life.
So that actually is part one of an entire ethical will. So that was the first part, and this is the second page. Jorge, you want to read that?
Of course, along these lines, I hope you can stay connected to each other, commit yourselves to things. It's where the rewards are. Seek out those who are older and more experienced.
That was someone's entire ethical will. Those two. Okay, so we're going to move on here now to the framework. We're going to get started. We have about 15 minutes, right, Linda? And you're going to speak at the end, I'm sure.
Like about 5 minutes at the end. So
Okay, great. So
we have
this,
about-
I mean, we don't have much time, but we've done the work now, and this is the framework. So this is a basic framework. This is not the way yours has to be. This is the best way to start a rough draft, because the hardest thing to do is decide your intended audience, determine what your intentions are, what it is you're conveying, your themes. You want to create an outline, and compose. I don't know, Kelsey, do you want to speak to how you did like bullet points? I mean, we did something very different.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, finding this whole exercise amazing, but also just incredibly challenging, because particularly for, step one, deciding your intended audience. I am married, I don't have children. So it's, who do I want to write this to is kind of a challenge. I have some nieces and nephews, but, really it's my family that's currently here, and my friends that I also consider family. But yeah, I think I found it kind of started off with on the next slide, which I know you'll go to, there's kind of a sample of a theme. And that was kind of helpful to break down. But I do feel like if you're wanting to really get started, just kind of bullet pointing ideas, concepts, ideas for stories or things that you want to elaborate on to help really create that outline, help me quite a bit.
Great. Okay, so this is the slide that she's referring to. I really like this. Once you've done, chosen your audience, these are the 3 areas and I did in my workshop the first paragraph. You don't have to do it in this order, but this is really something that I think will help you right now for what we're going to do. When you, did anyone ever have to do haiku in elementary school? Haiku little poems like 575 or something like that. That's what this reminded me of, that we had to get this theme through, and we had these little parameters. Obviously, you have the world of choices before you of how you want to do this. But right now, tonight, I'd like you to, at least in your mind, pick an audience. And remember, you don't just have one ethical will. It's not like you see in the movies, they're going to stand up and call everyone in a room and read off. These are like Stu said, maybe love letters. So you might leave one to your friend, you might leave one to, so this isn't the only one, but pick an audience that you want. And what you would do is you start, I'm looking sideways here, by expressing gratitude. To me, that was very easy because I wasn't sure who I wanted to write to, but I had to think about, well, if I am writing to someone, why am I writing to them? Why am I thankful for them? Why is it that I'm choosing them as an audience? And as soon as I did that, it was easy for me to pick someone. So I did that, and I wrote that first paragraph. Kelsey did something entirely different. But what I would like you to do now is think of who your audience is. I can only see my panelists, but can my panelists at least nod if they have an audience in mind that they're writing to? Linda, you have an audience? Have you picked someone? Okay, good. So you can choose how you want to do it. You can write some bullet points down. You can write a paragraph. You can start with the first that you're expressing gratitude, how they've enriched your life, thank them, whatever it is. Or you want to skip right to what you want to share. Pick something you want to share, even if, or how you're going to close. But we're going to take about, what should we take, like 3 minutes? Give you about 3 minutes to start something. And again, would absolutely love some participation. We'll have to limit it to a couple people because of time, but we're so grateful that we've had such great participation tonight. I'm really happy this is going this well. So let's start now. Pull out your paper, however you're doing it, and go. Let's start writing. Okay. Sorry, guys, time's up. Linda, do we have any participants?
Let's see. I don't see any hands raised, but how about anyone raise their hands or have it want to share, even if you're not finished, any thoughts? You can brainstorm here a little bit if you want. Like where are you going? I smell wood burning.
Steve has a hand raise.
Oh, here comes David again.
Okay, David. Stephen, okay, there you go, Stephen.
Oh, yay. Stephen, you have to unmute.
Unmute.
Yeah.
Stephen, and we have David too. Stephen, can you unmute?
I guess.
I
Do we have?
There you go. Stephen, is that you?
No, that's David.
Okay, well, let's go with David and then Stephen, continue to try to unmute.
Well, just on an immediate basis, what I have always thought 3 things is fill your mind with knowledge, your heart with love, and your soul with life. And I think that's the task, one of the 3 tasks certainly I have before me.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So Stephen, there's a little,
Stephen, are you ready?
I guess not. Okay.
How about
Anyone
somebody else? I know there are people there doing this. Don't be shy.
Looks like Stephen's unmuted now.
Okay,
Oh, Stephen.
Stephen.
Stephen, would you like to share, Stephen? Okay, guess not.
We had Arlene. Arlene, are you?
Yes, I just want to share that my children have taught me the love of adventure. I'm in my early 80s now, and I've been climbing mountains in Iceland, going to the Galapagos Islands, and my children live all around the world in exciting jobs, and I'm trying to keep up with them, climbing walls that are 32 feet high. They have taught me the love of adventure, but my husband and I raised our children to be, not what to be. And they're all fantastic and successful in their unusual occupations.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
We have another.
Lydia Eckelbaum.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
I have only three little things because you made me think. First of all, who influenced me in my past, and even though mommy and daddy are not supposed to be in my life, they were. So I got the three most important things that I want to make sure that I transmit to my children, to my grandchildren, into my nephews and grandnephews like Jorge. Look at the good in everybody is something that I was taught all the time. Don't always look at the negative part, and I always try to look for the positive. The next one is choose your battles. Don't go and fight the world. Choose which ones you really want to win, and don't make it all the time. And the last one is make sure you live life with a good sense of humor. So those were my three that you make me think about today. And thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you, Lydia.
It's
Thank you,
always so
Lydia.
wonderful when people participate because we all learn. I think about those things, and I wish I had thought of those things also.
That was great.
Is there anyone else that would like to share?
I would be happy to share as
Great.
something with a little bit more humor to it. So as I mentioned, I am childless, and so I have plenty of nieces and nephews, and now grand nieces and nephews. And I just quickly wrote, as sort of a theme, if I were to think of them as the ones that I want to target, the wisdom that I would impart would be things that I know are values of ways I see the world that are different from their parents. When you're an aunt or a grandma, you tend to be the fun aunt and kind of the fun grandma, and you do things that maybe your parents aren't. So there's just different things that you can teach them and expose them to that is different from their parents. And that's kind of what I started to get into a little bit, kind of a different take on it.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Okay, so before I turn this back to Linda, we've actually used all of our time. I am thrilled that we had so much participation. I want to thank everyone that participated. I want to thank Stu Weintraub for taking his time to join us tonight. I know he and I had to schedule calls days in advance for a 15-minute window. And he's taught me, I actually have worked with Stu a little bit, and he taught me a few weeks ago about the importance of not being late. If any of my colleagues are watching, they're probably laughing right now, or my family, but he said something that has certainly resonated. So I want to remind everyone here that everyone we come in contact with has something to share with us. Everyone has a story. Everyone has some wisdom to impart. We're all living this life. And your life has meaning, you matter, and you have something to share. So, choose your audience and get writing. And one last slide I want to share. It's, to me, very important. It is our information for you about Jorge, who is my colleague. He's on this. He's an advanced planning advisor here at Mount Sinai. And I know that many of you, as we said, this is a very personal. So if you have any additional or personal questions, if you want a copy of the slides or any ethical will templates, if you're interested in advanced planning or you want a copy of 10 good to know tips, we have advanced planning portfolios, which document everything and anything you may need to pass on tangible things to your family, please contact Jorge. I've put up his direct line and his email, and he too would be able to get you in contact if you want to talk to me or Kelsey, if you want to get in touch with Stu. And obviously, you know how to get in touch with Linda and everyone at the UCLA Longevity Center. Thank you so much, Linda, and all of your team for making this possible for us to present to your community. We really appreciate it, and it's been an honor.
It's been an honor working with you, and we do have just a few minutes left, but Kimber, somebody asked you a question, which is, what did you do with your ethical will?
What did I do with it?
That was an early question.
Well, I'm happy to share the first paragraph. Shall I do that?
Sure.
I wrote, it's very personal. I wrote, "Dear kids, many moms live their lives dedicated to their children. Their lives revolve around caring for kids, and their schedules and goals prioritize their kids. I'm not one of those moms. And I want to thank you from my core of my being for sharing me with the community, my overactive mind, my work, and wholly accepting and loving me as I am. Being your mother, Ema and Mudge, has enriched my life more than any other experience or relationship, as you have taught me in your own way that I'm good enough."
Beautiful.
That's it.
So there you have it. And please reach out to Jorge if you would like any copies or of the PowerPoints. We actually are recording this, so we'll have that loaded on the Longevity Center website once we prepare it and get it in the right format. And I just want to thank Kimber and Jorge and Stuart and Kelsey for being here tonight. It was a great informational session, and I think what you presented tonight really will give people a great foundation to start the ethical wills. It's also been a pleasure working with you, and I want to thank Lydia Eppelbaum, because we all have 2-3 degrees of separation, right? Lydia Eppelbaum is on the board of the Longevity Center, and she introduced me a couple of steps, but to Jorge, who introduced me to Kimber, and here is how we arrived where we are tonight. And I think it was a great learning experience for everyone, and for me too, because I had never really I didn't know about an ethical will myself. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here. I just want to tell you a little bit about the Longevity Center, give us a little plug. We're here at UCLA in the Department of Psychiatry, and we've been around for about, 30 years. And we are involved in memory wellness programs. We offer those to the community education, like a webinar like this, and community service, which is also through webinars and other events. We have programs without getting into them, but we have a lot of programs where you can attend UCLA classes, you can train your brain. And I just want to raise the idea of a legacy. We had one of our board members, his name was Dean Ambrose, and he passed away recently, but he was a person who donated to the center. And because of that donation, we created a senior resource directory of all things relevant to people over 55 at UCLA. That's a legacy. And we're all can use it, even though he's no longer with us. So this is a tangible legacy given from the goodness of his heart, but this is who he was. He was about helping community. So here's a living example of passing down values. And we raise all of our own funds at the center. But if you want to make a donation, or you want to get to know more about our programs, check us out. And Olivia Ballesteros is our program coordinator. There's her email. And I particularly want to thank our Longevity Center team Olivia for being here tonight, Ernesto Vasquez, who is our AV person, and Dr. Emnet Gamada for helping with community outreach, and all of you, because we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. So thank you everyone so much, and have a great evening. And we hope to see you in the future at one of our webinars. And we hope you check out Mount Sinai Memorial Park and all the many good things that they do. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you, and
Thank
thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Oh,
Okay,
it's my
take care,
pleasure.
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.